What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo with Mike Golick Jr. That is me. With me in a garage, but not his garage. Back, as always, Brandon Jarrell Newman. What's going on, Brandon? We missed you yesterday.
Miss me, Mike. For one, you can talk, but for more importantly, you can sing.
Yeah, listen, my this, that, and the third reprisal, man. I just want to make you proud. You've been pulling the weight on that segment for the entirety of this podcast, and I just feel like I had to do you right.
Voice of an angel, my brother.
Listen, just trying to make you proud on here. We appreciate everyone who stuck with the podcast yesterday. As always, download, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating and a review. Brandon back with us today here, and we have another one of our friends back with us today here. An awesome show, plenty going on, but anytime we get to visit with our friend and Apple TV Plus's Friday Night Baseball's very own, Katie Nolan, joining us back here on the pod for yet another check-in as we go, of course, the long season. We got about 30 games left, a bunch of different things on the line down the stretch of Major League Baseball, couple of different home run-related chases, some interesting dark horse teams, and just checking in with our buddy here. Since we know so many of you love Katie, we always enjoy getting to chop it up with her a little bit. And this will be the first time for anyone who has enjoyed this podcast and enjoyed hearing from Katie. Remember that you can see Katie. We are on YouTube now, the DraftKings YouTube channel,
Yes.
the GoJo with Mike Golick Jr. playlist on there. You will see an episode up with mine, Brandon, and Katie's bright shining faces as we have a great conversation about baseball today. So something to look forward to for everyone on that front. Brandon, we appreciate everyone checking out those videos. We are trying to grow that as we go forward during football season. It'll give us some cool opportunities to hopefully do other stuff, some game watches, things like that. Maybe I can even get video from my first pitch at the Hartford Yard Goats game up, since that actually went off without a hitch last night, and we got that pitch over the mound. So,
Mike, how you feeling? It looked great.
Man, so two things immediately come to mind, and every podcast is someone's first. I grew up in Connecticut. I lived in Connecticut for six and a half years when I was working at ESPN as an adult. And the AA affiliate for the Colorado Rockies, the Hartford Yard Goats, came into being during my time there. And Connecticut doesn't always get a lot of interesting things. It's a very nice place to grow up, but there's not a lot to do. And so having a AA ballpark 10 minutes from my door, I was like, all right, we need to support this. We need to make sure they feel very loved. And so got to know the people over at the Yard Goats really well. They were kind enough this past offseason to ask me if I'd be comfortable doing a Mike Golick Jr. bobblehead night and throwing out the first pitch of a game. That was before they knew I was going to be leaving ESPN and moving out of the state. They were still kind enough to go through with that, which meant I flew back into town and got to hang out at this baseball game. And Brandon, I had not thrown a baseball in, as we talked about, maybe 5 or 6 years, and that seems like it's on the low end. And the one thing I regretted was they would not let me throw from the mound. So when they do the first pitch for these games, I was the last of a group of people that got to throw the first pitch. It's a minor league baseball game, so people with birthdays. There was a girl whose birthday who was out there in a walking boot who gutted through it. A guy 2 spots in front of me was a pitcher at UConn.
Damn.
Laced it, a lefty throwing gas. But they wouldn't let us go up on the mound because they didn't want everyone going up there and, mucking up the freshly painted mound and all that stuff. And so I knew I was going to take some heat for that. But when I actually threw this pitch, first off, nervous as shit. Didn't want to mess this up. Already knew I was going to have the mound haters on me. And so as soon as I let that go, had no idea what was going to happen. I'd gone to the park and had my sad game of catch against the fence by myself. And apparently that day of about 40 reps of throwing a baseball paid off, because I promise the catcher did not have to move his glove an inch, man.
Stop, Mike.
That was, as someone pointed out, you could see in the couple of seconds after on video, and at GoJo Show on Twitter, we got the video out there because obviously, you could see in the couple seconds after the pitch genuine elation as I hit the little sprint jog off the mound to go do the handshake with the catcher.
Yes, I know. I definitely noticed that it wasn't just like, oh, this is over. It was like, I did that shit.
Yes, it was 100. It was relief. You know how people always ask you after a bigger event or like a big sports win, it's like, are you more excited or relieved? It was 100% relief. I just didn't want to end up being like 50 Cent out here. That was all I wanted to avoid, and I knew it was possible. So got through that. Everyone at the Yard Goats are first class. It was an awesome experience. They took care of my family and a lot of friends that came out there and made sure we had a great time in that process. Because after that, I just got to go drink beers out of a plastic baseball bat for the rest of the time and stare contemplating existence at my bobblehead like a weirdo.
Why did I say Car? Mike, I almost called you Carter. Mike, you made everyone proud. Look, that's why I was about to go into Dad's speech. You made everyone proud, Carter. Mike, you made everyone proud. I think it was an amazing night. I was underestimating just how swaggy the Yard Goats uniforms would be. And the mask, like, honestly, buddy, Mike, just like drippy, drippy, drip, drip, drip. And then also, shouts out to the homie, friend of the podcast, friend of you in IRL, Jason Fitz.
I know, man. So the worst part about this, because Jason Fitz, who you guys have heard on this podcast, does a great job, and him and I work together at ESPN a bunch. We talked about on this podcast, but I always feel the need to remind people, because at this point, Jason's been doing sports media now long enough to kind of be known for this. Jason went to Juilliard and was a classically trained violinist. He was a country musician for his entire life. He played in the band Freaking Perry for 7 years and was their musical director. He's legitimately talented in ways that are incredible, but I love to give him shit because he's a tiny like 45-year-old who somehow still looks like he's 23. And so they had Jason play the national anthem on his violin after I threw out the first pitch. And I stayed down there on the field because we were all going to walk back up together. And I leaned over to my friend Carly, who was down there with me, and I was like, I hate the fact that he's legitimately talented because I want to rip on him. And I heard the rendition of the anthem he played, and it was beautiful. Like, I firmly believe instrument anthems are superior to most. Yeah. A high-level, well-sung anthem, like we've seen over time, the Whitney Houston, all those stand the test of time in a way that nothing else will. But if you're going to give me a normal voice anthem or any instrument anthem, I'm taking the instrument anthem every time.
Okay, I like that. Carlos Santana, I tell you, that does something to me, Mike. And I talk about America, okay?
Brandon. Bro,
it just hits different.
Carlos Santana, that's a narcotic playing the anthem. There's no question. But Jason was up on that level. So it was really, it's like a good reminder that while we do enjoy giving him grief, Jason is incredibly talented, and that was a very cool addition to what was a super fun evening on that front. So I managed to, even though I understand the mound distinction, and I ran it by Jared Carabas, who had successfully thrown out the first pitch of the Red Sox game, I actually broke down film of Jared to make sure, like, all right, form-wise, how I go about this, how I attack my trip up to the mound. I wanted to study the tape of someone else who had just successfully done a first pitch. And after I threw the video up and checked him for it, the first thing that came up was the mound thing. I knew that was going to be an obstacle for me, but we overcame it as best we could. We got some positive feedback, and most importantly, I didn't dirt the first pitch because, like my father, threw out his first pitch at a Cubs game in Chicago, underestimated the mound, skipped it off the dirt, and got booed. So managed to avoid that, managed to make my nephew Jackson proud of me. All these things, major positives on the evening.
Good shit, Mike. Good shit.
Brandon, and as much as I'd love to keep gushing about what feels like a major personal accomplishment for me, we actually did have someone in sports last night who accomplished something way, way bigger and more important than that, and gave us something that is so unique, Brandon, and it is the exact reason why we celebrate the exit of all-time greats and sort of mourn the loss the way we do. Because Serena Williams, once again, victorious at the U.S. Open. She went through the second round and managed to take down Annette Kontaveit. She took her down in 3 sets. She won the first set 7-6, lost the second set 2-6, and won the third set 6-2. Wednesday night in Arthur Ashe Stadium. Williams beat her 26-year-old counterpart, the current number 2 ranked women's tennis player in the world. And Brandon, when I say broke her, and I want to be fair to Kontaveit because most of us casuals who are coming in because this is Serena Williams.
Yes.
You had the entire timeline glued to this. I'd be fascinated to see the numbers because I feel like as we keep going along here, the buildup is going to get greater and greater, and the spectacle is going to be even more. Part of Serena Williams, Tiger Woods, these all-time greats in sports that aren't dominant, traditionally now in the U.S. sports washing psyche, those dominant individuals are such a unique draw because their greatness is so unparalleled that we always want to see if they are going to rise, fall, steamroll, continue at whatever. But with Serena now, we've got the deadlines drive results theories, right? We're always addicted to endings as sports fans and I think as people. And so we had everyone consuming this all at once. And I did find myself feeling sort of bad that this woman, Annette Konovate, who had dealt with COVID earlier this year, is one of the most successful players to ever come from Estonia. Like, she is not the first great tennis player to come from that nation, but she is certainly one of the best to ever come from that place. And she had to go through a match where everyone in attendance wanted her to lose. Tiger Woods, Anna Wintour, Spike Lee, Dionne Warwick, all of them there. There was a voiceover piece from Oprah. Seal was there. And the one thing they had in common is they all wanted that woman to lose. And you saw the weight of that in the final couple of games in that third set where she just looked like she was drowning in a sea of what Serena Williams has experienced her entire life. Right. Like, for what we can talk about how inconsistent the game has been for Serena as injury and other things have sort of dominated this last stretch of her career and made us wonder what she would be able to accomplish in this U.S. Open. On the other side, you had a player in Annette Konovate who probably has never lived anything with as much, even if it wasn't open animosity towards her. Her mistakes were a cause for celebration. Everyone wanted Serena Williams in there because they didn't want to see the end of what they've known as the dominant force in women's tennis for the last 2 days to be that night. And they got their wish, and we will all celebrate it because we're enjoying this run. But there was a part of me in the midst of all that going, that's a real, like, individual sports and the psychology that goes into them are already fascinating to me. But when you put it on this stage with that kind of crowd and that kind of energy surrounding the event, I would be curious in an honest moment what she would say about what that experience was like from her side.
Yeah, I mean, they always talk about the 11th man, or the 12th man, in Seattle, up there. Shout out to Mina Kimes. But I can't imagine what it would be like in tennis, an actual one-on-one sport, to be against all odds. Right, like at this point in time, she won the second round. Right, like, let's be fair and say that, after winning the second set, the second match, whatever you call it, Serena also woke up. Right, so she had to deal with the fact that she poked the bear. The bear is like, oh, I actually want to be here. I want to finish playing in the Open. I'm really good at tennis. It doesn't matter that this person is number 2. Like, that's all narrative stuff. It's like the Utah Jazz just happened to be on the slate when Kobe's last game, right? There's always going to be someone at the end, at the bottom of these great moments for these sports entities. But for Serena, the end of an era, one of the most U.S. Open wins or matches in the recent history. It just feels better. It feels bigger. Now, third round is played on a Friday, Mike, in New York. As Oprah said, thank you for making the Big Apple bigger. Like, thank you for making center court, center stage. It just felt real and special. And I'm glad that we got a chance to watch it. Me and you, we got together. I mean, we were watching it together, like you would do, like any big sporting event. Like, you're like, oh my gosh, is Tiger about to do it? Like, it was Serena. Is Serena going to, like, take the heart out of this young lady? And we got the chance to see it. And she was very respectful on the way out. But just if this whole thing is bigger because it's not Serena defending the fact that she is Serena, is Serena proving that she is Serena.
Well, it's her getting a chance to celebrate it because that's what all this is. It feels like a celebration.
True.
I'll be very interested to see how far Serena has to make it in this tournament before we get the headline wondering if she might put off retirement. because she had been so successful here. And maybe she gets tantalizingly close enough to winning this thing that all of a sudden you get those competitive fires stoked again, and she decides that she wants to stick around because, man, I'd imagine all of this attention on the way out's got to be pretty nice too. You saw Serena very much used to owning the moment, like we saw after the match, where she was asked if she was surprised by her performance, and she said something to the effect of, "I'm just Serena." Like, she pulled the full third person, and everyone lapped it up because we're in full GOAT celebration mode. So that will be fun to watch as we go forward here. But it is really, Brandon, the best of what these figures at that level do for sports, which is they create these communal experiences around moments like this. These are things where, like you said, you get people like me and you stopping what you're doing to just watch this because you need to know and need to see if it's the end or if we're going to have something to look forward to on Friday. And that is exactly what we will have. We will have that to look forward to Friday. She plays, I'm not even going to begin to try and pronounce the first name, but Tomljanovic on Friday. She's the, I think, 46th ranked women's player in the world. So this certainly seemed like, on paper at least, the bigger challenge, but I'm not going to pretend to know tennis now just because I've watched 2 matches this week. I'm going to sit back like an idiot and enjoy all this as it's coming up and as it's going along with us. So, Brandon, it was a fun night of tennis. That was a conversation we very much enjoyed. We're going to take a quick break, though, and coming up next, we're going to have another conversation we really enjoy with our friend and Friday Night Baseball announcer on Apple TV+, Katie Nolan. While not about losing his freedom, I had a similar sentiment listening to John Gruden address like some sort of like Arkansas touchdown club kind of thing, and they asked him, and he came out and he did the thing where he's like, I'm not going to deny like the things that were said in that email were, terrible or something like that. He goes, but I'm a good person. I go to church on Sundays. I've been married for 31 years. And
didn't ask.
I hope at some point you can forgive me and then I can get a second chance. And I'm just like,
yeah, those are all true. He didn't say anything that was a lie. It's just like nobody asked, dude. I'm sick of husbands bringing up the fact that they held down a wife as like the reason that they're definitely cool. Like, it's
so
not
true. It's like you're
you
telling
just got
yourself.
married.
Right.
Yeah, like, cool. Did that feel like charity when you did it? Because it was just a thing that you chose to do and we don't care about, quite frankly.
And the fact that, like, it would somehow equate to, like, that is part of the formula of things that now equals absolution on the other side.
Yeah, but I filled out the equation, and so I get to be good. I'm now officially good, and anything that comes out of my mouth or any of my actions can't be held against me because as you check my balance here, I add up to good. So I couldn't possibly
You'll see
do that.
here on the P&L sheet, this.
Yes, I've done the math, you guys can't touch me.
Michelle, my wife, is Catholic, and I'm not, but a Christian, whatever. So we like love talking about like how we like. Basically, we're like beating down how to look at life, and the Catholics with the sin. There's like so much gray area in being sinful. Like I think we're Christians is just like don't do the 10 Commandments stuff. Like you guys, like not you guys. I don't know who's Catholic, but like the people born like raised Catholic. It's like you're like raised constantly Catholic, like pushed to think like, am I pissing God off right now?
Am I the worst? Am I the worst person on earth and the devil? Am I making Jesus' sacrifice worth nothing? Did this man die for me to just be a bad person?
Venial sins? What the hell?
Constantly. They teach you about confession very young. That's a sacrament you get very young. And you have to go in and confess your sins. They were all lies. I would only tell the small bads. I never told the big bads. I was never like, I punched my brother. I would be like, I took an extra cookie out of the cookie jar. All right.
You rascal, Nolan.
Nobody cares. Jesus took as many cookies as he could get.
People don't talk enough about that,
Catholics,
man. Jesus out here jocking cookies left and right.
That's right.
Wild.
And what would Jesus do? Jock a cookie? Always been the deal.
Man,
I just thought like Catholics are taught to lie to. Catholics are taught to lie to people of authority at an early age. Sounds like.
I mean, pretty much. Well, for my church, the crazy thing was that we didn't have those like they do it in the movies, where there's a screen between you and the priest. Ours was you sat across from the guy. and you had to tell them what you did. And I was like, this
Scientologist?
This is, it was like, I was sweating. Yeah, that's right. But I got all my thetans out because I paid $9.95 a month.
There you go.
No, you had to sit. It was like an interview in which you told them how much you stink, and then they admonish you. It's like you were in trouble with not even your parents. That
is true.
If they had the little wall, I would have said everything.
That wall really does a lot. That wall is actually early internet. That was just confessing your sins to a chat room in a different location.
Yes, exactly. This is such a good sports podcast.
That's what we strive to be around here, is the best sports. I mean, I guess it's only right that it's sports with a question mark right now in the way that we're approaching this. It's just...
I mean, might as well. You guys putting out
we
video
are,
yet?
We're on
Is that
YouTube
happening?
now.
Shut up. So I'm on YouTube?
Katie Nolan, for as tenured a guest as you have been on this podcast, this is your first YouTube trip with us.
Ooh, sorry, this is what it looks like. I'm still, we're moving soon, and so I'm not going to redo any of my deck. It's just like, it is what it is at this point. And so this room is very underwhelming, but what I have there behind me that you can't see, those are the standings. Major League Baseball
laminated.
standings. So I wake up every morning and I see those. Yeah, they're like little, I used to use them when I had a late night show to put like the blocks in, but now I have them. Yeah, I have them and I don't have so they're movable. And that just has all of the...
Katie, can I just say, watching your baseball journey throughout this season, I have enjoyed how much of your baseball process is done with manual as opposed to electronic or automatic.
Yeah.
It's
weird,
amazing, but it's clearly effective. Like, you could wake up and check the standings on a computer, but that's not interactive and doesn't make you, like, interact with the subject matter.
It doesn't stick. I think it's the ADD. Like, I think I'm finally just accepting who I am and being like, this is what you need in order for this to sink in. Like, you're not like other people. It doesn't stay the way it stays for them, but doesn't mean you have to work harder. You just have to come up with a workaround. And my workaround has been that. I still haven't cracked the notes thing. There have been a couple weeks where I've been like, there isn't some... Okay, so the crazy thing about booths... I assume we're just recording now, right? Okay. The crazy thing about booths is that they're all different sizes. That sounds kind of obvious, but I mean, some of them are so small, and some of them are vast. And so every week, and we also changed seats a lot, it changed how much space I would have in front of me. Now, I don't know if you know this, and I don't know if this is the way it is for football or whatever, but when they give you the packets about the team with all the like extra information and like the lineups, they're on this extra long paper.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not regular sized paper.
Yep.
It's like paper and a half almost. And most of the booths don't even fit that. So it's this big piece of paper that I want to have accessible, because a lot of times if there's nothing to say, you check the packet, you're like, oh, that's a fun fact that only the team knew, and now I can share. And so there's that, then there's a laptop, then there's my monitor that I have to be able to see, and because there's 3 of us, we have 3 monitors, so that's already, and the 2 of them have laptops, so it's there's not a lot of space. And so 2 weeks ago, I tried to do just paper. It was hilarious. If anyone could have seen, it was hilarious. I had these huge stacks. Every player had a page so that if they changed the batting order, I could move them all around. They weren't all like filled to the brim, but they each had their own page. But that's on 2 teams. And so you've got 2 sets of 9. Then I had the pitchers in their own separate thing with their arsenals and all that. And then and at some point I just was like, I'm not watching any of the baseball game. I'm just trying to get my notes in order. So it's crazy. So then I was gonna start saying, I'm gonna do these without any notes. I'm gonna do these with 1 page of notes of like reminders that I know I need and nothing else. I'm just gonna watch the game. But the thought of that is terrifying to me because I just feel like something will come up, and if I had done and I had it somewhere, then I would need it and I could access it right now.
Watching a game like that is really terrifying because like that was the first thing my dad ever told me about doing games is he goes, you need 100% of the background to use maybe 20% if you're lucky. And then you just end up with a bunch of wasted shit.
It's so true. It's so true. It's like I know the thing that I want to bring to this job, and I do still believe that there's value in it. But the thing that you need to have to do this job is something you can only really accumulate over time. And so it's really tough to try to make the impact I want to make with in my first, you know what I mean? I just feel like the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm like, I don't know that that everyone's gonna get it. I will say a couple, same way it happened with Garbage Time. The first reaction, this one was rougher. This one was really, really rough. My first day was like, I'm gonna go to therapy about that when the season's over. That first day was tough. But then we're at a point now where like, I don't check because I learned, but when I take a quick peek, it's like 50-50 or 60-40 pro. So like either they've stopped tagging me, which thank you either way, honestly. Even if that's it, it's like cool, still grateful for it. But there are people that see it or get it that appreciate it, I think. Well, but like, look, I think also this is a good time for me to go on record as saying like, if you asked me how I did this season, I give myself like a C. It's not a failing grade, but there's a lot of room to grow. And so like, I just don't want people out here thinking that I'm over here like, I fucking rule at this gig. Ooh. Like I know it's a learning process. But I've learned so much already in just a year. And it's fun. We did a Red Sox game last week. It was
Can I say something? Like it's so interesting because we've had you on, and I want to talk a lot about the Red Sox thing because seeing that picture of you and your mom in the booth was the most wholesome shit on earth. And whoever decided to put that in black and white just my small heart grew 3 sizes that day for some reason with the black and white. But it's wild, Katie, because we've had you on at different portions of the season, pretty well spaced out now at this point. And it went from at the beginning, like feeling what felt like watching you feel the weight of a lot of that like cruelty that people were throwing your way. Then the last time we had you on, you were like a kid that just recently fell in love, and it was the happiest I've heard you. It was right before the All-Star break where we heard you talking about Julio Rodriguez and all this great stuff, and it was...
Who was
Katie,
not right?
I don't know if you've ever been more right about anything ever through the sequence of events that followed between him almost winning the home run derby and then getting dumb paid. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Oh, he's so great. But like you were a kid in love there, and now you seem very comfortable. Like it's really nice because you seem very comfortable in even how you're addressing all this right now. And it shows up on the broadcast too, but just hearing the way you've talked about it on here, like do you feel that comfort right now? Because it seems like you're very aware of it all.
I think so. I think I'm getting there. I think there was a week where we were coming out east a couple times in a row, and I got COVID that week, and so I got a full week off. I got COVID and it wasn't bad, so it was almost just like a week off because I wasn't allowed to go to work until I cleared a protocol. And so I got to stay home, and then the next game was in New York, and so I got to go to a game in New York, and then the next game was in New York, and so for 3 weeks I was home. And I think that alone, taking out the travel part of it and having a bunch of other people on our team have to do the travel the opposite way. And obviously going west to east sucks more because you lose time, like literally in the time zones, whereas you gain it when you go the opposite way. But like watching other people do that travel and tell me how difficult it is, I was like, okay, I think I wasn't even factoring in the added, like after 2 years of not leaving your house, you are going to go to an airport every week and fly across the country every week and then fly back every week and lose your Sunday and be on a plane. So like I think the 3 weeks at home helped with the comfort a lot. And then I also think it was just, I don't know. I think it's just like accepting that, hey, this is the season. And if you're only going to do this for one season, you better start enjoying it and doing it the way you will look back at this and go, I wish I had done this with the opportunity. Like I think a lot of the times now, because as soon as you start a new job, especially like a public facing job, the criticism comes with like, take that job away from her. You start to just even subconsciously be like, I got to prove that I deserve this job. And it takes away that if you had never encountered that, you would go into it being like, how can I crush this job? What about me? Why am I here? And what is it my job to bring? So I think I spent after that first week, which I still haven't gone back and listened to any of them. I'm too afraid. I'm too afraid that I'm going to just vomit and then I won't be able to go to work the next week. So until the season's over, I'm not going to listen to them. But I bet when I do, that first week, I like probably the most. Because the first week, I didn't know. The first week, the first few innings, I was just like, this fucking rules. And then by like the first time I checked Twitter, I think you hear me go like, yeah, okay. Like, it wasn't perfect. I started stories when there were 2 outs, which you're not supposed to do. And like I stepped on Steven during a call or two, but I think like comfort level, like personality wise, I think week 1's probably going to be my best week. And so the lesson for me there was like, okay, well, you have a couple more weeks you could treat exactly like you treated the first week. And it's almost like I know enough now to know what I don't know. So I'm trying to make sure I know that. And it's hard to just be like, don't worry about that. Just go and experience it the way you would experience it. And if you need something, look it up or ask for it. But like, just go. Watch the teams in the week leading up to your game and then just go. You don't have to have a million notes. So I'm not there yet. I have a million notes, but I do think my goal is to lock these notes tonight and then study them tomorrow. Like really study them, read them, try to teach myself little devices to remember them. Maybe pick the top 10 things that are like, this is a really interesting stat that can lead to an interesting story. Put those on a piece of paper, and that's it. I want to bring a piece of paper because they give you like 80 pieces when you get there. So it's already going to be a mess. And I'll have my laptop. It'll be there as a backup. But I think the goal is to just try to, I don't know. I've been saying every week, I'm like, I think I figured it out. And I
like
haven't.
You said,
but I'm trying to enjoy the last few weeks. That's the point. Is I'm trying to make sure I don't do them the way everybody wanted me to, because I don't think I'm even going to be able to achieve that yet. And I'm going to do them the way that I want to do them, because I might not do this again next year. And so I'd regret it so much if I miss the chance.
You want to go out doing it your way rather than trying to mimic someone else, which is the best possible way to do that. But you're right. Like, I'm glad you like allowed yourself the grace of being like, this is my first year of doing this thing. Like, trying on a bunch of different hats before you figure out which one looks best is a pretty normal way to go about that, especially for someone as creative as you. So that's, I don't know, I think it's a super interesting look at that process. Was that all a lot easier, or was it harder when you did the Red Sox game, when you got to go home?
So the Red Sox game was tough because it came right after a Yankees game. And the Yankees game, I struggled with because a lot of the stuff I do, I ask myself if like 13-year-old me would be embarrassed of me or ashamed of me or frustrated with me. And most of that is just to keep me tethered to something. So it's like if 13-year-old me found out that I was going to get famous and be able to work in sports for a living, if she put on a Yankees hat for a sketch, would 13-year-old me be disappointed? And I'm like, yeah, she would. And so I don't. Like, I make a lot of decisions based off. And so it's important to me to like remember where I came from. I did not come up in this not liking a team. Like, the reason that I got pulled in is because I grew up in that area. And so it was hard for me thinking like, and people know this about me. So how do I be in a Yankees booth without like... But then I thought about it and I'm like, look, this actual specific team, I don't really have animosity for. Like, I haven't, like I said, I took a couple years off baseball after the Mookie thing, which it's nice to see how justified and right I was looking at Mookie just absolutely crush. It's been so cool. But it was like, you don't have any animosity towards this actual team. You can cover them. They're still interesting people, even when you have a rivalry hatred for a team. It's not usually because of something someone said in an interview. It's you just don't like them because of the laundry. You really, really hate the laundry and the mantra of the team. So like, my compromise to myself was like, look, keep it real with Aaron Boone when you see Aaron Boone. Don't pretend to not be...
I was going to say, this was the season-long arc for you with Aaron Boone, where what was the original backstory here, where you had told Aaron Boone to fuck off at some point? Was that it?
Yeah, to go fuck himself, actually. It was ESPN. I don't know if it was ESPYs, but it was one of those events where we were all around and staying at that JW Marriott or whatever. And I had gotten drunk and was leaving, and I had heard that when I got hired here, Aaron Boone was like, can't wait to meet Katie Nolan, because Aaron Boone hit a home run that ended our season, the Red Sox season, our season in 2003. We know now in the future that in 2004 we went on to win it, but to Sox fans, that was pain, absolute pain. And it was Aaron fucking Boone. We hated him. His name was like, so anyway, we met and I was drunk and I said, Aaron Boone, go fuck yourself, like right in his face. Because I figured I would never see him again because, oh, cool, he's going to go be the manager of the Yankees. And when that happened, I was like, oh my God, I cursed out the manager of the Yankees. But then I had to go interview him and I was like, I don't know what to do. And Hunter was out that day. I had told this story to the crew, like, hey, when we get to New York, like, it's not going to be a thing, but just so you know, like, this is a thing I'm trying to navigate how to handle. And like, but we had Dan Plesac, who is like former baseball player, like, he's like dad. He's like a dad energy where I was like, I'm going to have to now tell my dad.
We're back to confession.
I cursed out so like I told him the story beforehand and he seemed like he laughed at it. And then we walked into the office and Aaron Boone said, he was like, he shook everyone's hand and I was hiding in the back like this. And he was like, Katie Nolan. I was like, oh, good to meet you, Katie Nolan. Or I said, good to see you. I'm Katie Nolan. And he was like, Katie Nolan, you weren't very nice to me the last time I saw you. And I was like, no, I was not. So then he was like, yeah, I saw your name in the text message that like we have a meeting with, Heidi Watney, blah, 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 Katie Nolan. And he was like, I think she yelled at me one time. And then he goes, and I don't even remember what you could have yelled at me for. And I was like, okay, excuse me. Do you not remember? The year was 2003. And he started laughing. So the meeting goes on. This was right after he had gotten booed and people had like chanted to fire him. And I mean, I asked him, like I would ask anybody, because he was talking about how players deal with stuff like that. And then I was like, how have you been dealing with it? And he kind of got quiet. And like, man, it's got to be tough to be the manager of the Yankees when the Yankees are struggling. But then at the end, we were all saying goodbye. And as I walked out, I was the last person to shake his hand. And I said, sorry about before. And he was like, that's okay. And I leaned in. I was like, but you can go fuck yourself.
Yes.
Oh.
Be yourself, Katie.
It's just like, he can. I'm not going to be phony to you, sir. You're great. I have empathy for you. Like, I wish you nothing but success now, I guess. But like, boy, oh boy, if I were a dude, I would punch you. I just know that I can't.
Oh, wow. You know what? Knowing this was in the works this entire season, the payoff is even better than I could have possibly imagined. Like, part of that had to be so deeply... 13-year-old you came and high-fived you, or whatever 13-year-olds would have done back then.
Yeah.
She had to be insanely proud.
Absolutely, high five. She would have jumped up and high-fived me. She was a little tiny lady. But yeah, it was cool. And the reason that all came up, to go back to your original question, that was harder for me. Once I had kind of wrestled with that for the Yankees broadcast, when we got around to doing the Red Sox... In the email, like the pitch about what we were going to do for the show's open had like Katie as a Red Sox fan. And I had been worried because when the week before when we did the Yankees, a guy, I guess a higher up at MLB was like, does everybody know that Katie's a Red Sox fan? Like, is that going to be a problem? And I was like, yeah, everybody that knows me knows, because I'm not quiet about it. So I didn't know how we were going to have to handle the Red Sox. And then when they were like, how cool is it going to be to call a game at Fenway? And I was like, oh, okay, if we can do this, then I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to enjoy. I'm going to bring my parents. I'm going to show them the booth. Like, and man, it was really, really cool. It was very,
what
very
was that
cool.
moment when you're like, folks got up to the booth?
Cool. It was awesome. They weren't as emotional as I would have liked them to be, like in my imagination on my Pinterest board of this moment. I kind of wanted my mom to have tears in her eyes, and it was only me crying. But then I realized that like this is their first time ever being in that booth, and they're also just like being around. They've never met Hunter or Steven, my coworkers, and so like they have to keep up appearances. I'd like to think if it were just the three of us that they would have hugged me and told me how proud they are of me. My dad, at least. Mom's always been a tougher audience, but it was very cool. It was very cool. It was just very cool. And then they ended up leaving the game early, but it was very cool. Awesome. Dude, there was a rain delay that screwed up. We didn't get to go down on the field. There was no batting practice. Like I didn't get to, you know how I've told you I've been like shying away from meeting anybody. I was going to start trying to do that more. of like just going over and introducing myself and then, backing away or whatever. But then it rained and we got no batting practice. So that stinks. But I don't know if I'm supposed to say this yet. I'll find out and then I'll text you if you have to cut it out. Our last game of the season is Red Sox at Yankees.
Oh my God. Oh no. What did your body do when you found out that news? Like, again, we can cut all this out if we need to, but
no, I don't think so. Because remember, at the beginning of the season, I feel like the first time I did this podcast, I said there was no Yankees and no Red Sox, and I was glad for that because I don't know how I would cover the Yankees. And I haven't been that strong of a Red Sox fan in recent years, and I didn't want to fuck up in front of my city. I didn't want my own people to hate me and me to hate that. That would feel very alienating. Then I found out that we got Boston and the Yankees added, dealt with that. Then I find out that the last game of the season is going to be Boston and the Yankees in one game. And I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know what we're going to do. I think it's going to be really fun. I'm going to lean into the chaos of it. It's just, we set the precedent when we said that I was a Red Sox fan like that. And that was out of my hands. I didn't press for that. I didn't ask for that. It was given to me. So I feel like that's safe.
Katie.
But I don't know. It's going to be pretty crazy.
What if Aaron Judge breaks the Yankees home run record that day? Like, how would you handle that?
I hope he does. I'm not. I'd be thrilled. It would be foolish to hope that history wouldn't be made because you don't like the shirt that he's wearing. Like, I don't even think he's going to be a Yankee for much longer. So I'm happy to root for Aaron Judge to hit that. You know what's crazy about that record and why I feel like that record is going to get broken? The record by Roger Maris, 61 home runs, was set in 1961, which was 61 years ago.
Okay, there it is.
Oh, yeah.
To me, it just feels like, of course, this is the year that it's going to get broken. It's just, why does that all line up so perfectly?
That's Brandon has like a very real fascination with, he calls them ESPN stats. I really think they're baseball stats.
Which one? Is it the ones that are like, this is the first time in 2 years that a hitter from the left side of the plate on a Tuesday has taken a pitcher, has hit 2 home runs off of, like those ones?
Did you guys see the one the other day that involved Serena Williams?
No.
So,
unless she plays baseball now.
They added her. She was the add-on to a baseball tweet. So the boardroom came out with this and said, on August 29th, 2001, Serena Williams won at the U.S. Open, Albert Pujols hit a home run, and Vlad Guerrero Sr., Craig Biggio, and Dante Bichette all recorded a hit. On August 29th, 2022, Serena Williams won at the U.S. Open, Albert Pujols hit a home run, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Kevon Biggio, and Bo Bichette all recorded a hit. Kevin,
but I love it. That's great. That's okay. Kevon sounds a lot cooler. I bet he wishes it was Kevon. Damn, that's cool. I like stats like that because they don't mean anything, but they're fun. Like, what are the odds? That's to me how you know it's a simulation. That's like when you can see the guy behind the curtain, and it's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. We're running it back. I
always say that I don't know, because baseball stats, I feel like they add some color, but the ESPN stats are specific without the color. Like, it was the one that jumps out was Steve Spurrier was the head coach for the South Carolina, and they were playing Tim Tebow right after he won the Heisman, and it said, this is the first time in the history of college football that a Heisman Trophy winner is quarterback against a Heisman Trophy coach, or a Heisman Trophy winning player that is now a coach.
Which I think is a cool stat.
Cool.
I thought
I think that's cool. There was something this year that was like that. That was a cool stat in baseball, but of course, it has long since left my mind. Oh, I think it was the first time a number 1 pick became it was either a first round pick or a number 1 overall pick became head coach of a baseball team. It was the interim coach for the Angels.
See, Brandon?
Whose name currently escapes me.
Nah, he's a great guy.
Doesn't matter. You don't find that interesting, Brandon? Those things don't interest you when it's like, this is the first time this and this has happened? Like, there's been a lot of that with that Toronto team because it's all like stunting like their daddies, but it's
I'll say this. I struggle to read, So when I finally get the information in, I'm just like, okay, that wasn't worth the sweat. That wasn't worth the furrow. Like that wasn't just. It's just like wasn't worth it. Like there's nothing to me going into this game.
Okay. But the 61 is cool, right?
That's very dope.
And it's possible I'm wrong. 1961 plus 61 years is 2022, correct?
Yeah, that's. I'm not quite my father when it comes to mental math, but I'm pretty sure.
I don't know that either. He said I don't know that either. Yeah, I think it's right. I didn't see it written anywhere. I did the math myself, so that makes me a little nervous. But
so 1961 plus 61 equals 2022. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's go. Let's go.
Katie Nolan,
math.
in addition to being baseball booth woman, also math.
Booth lady.
I was thinking about this today because I went scrolling through your timeline to make sure that there wasn't something that I missed or something, and you're entirely baseball as a content person.
I know. I also don't tweet.
No,
I really don't tweet anymore.
Anything that makes it out there is 100% baseball. And as someone who made a living for so long as a generalist and someone that would pop into different things, like, are you... I don't know, what's that going to be like for you potentially, like, hitting that switch back off? Because I feel like you've gone really... I mean, you have a goddamn literal copy of the standings next to your bed right now. You've clearly gone down a different path for a little bit here.
This is my interior decorating. I don't think it's going to... I'll need somebody to catch me up on the big ones I missed. But, like, it won't be difficult for me, I don't think. Right now I'm so focused for my job that I'm not really consuming it for like what I like. It's more like I like doing this and I'm putting all of my interest into this. I'm so interested in this that I don't really have time to be interested in the other stuff. But as soon as that time opens up, I'm so excited for the postseason. I'm so excited. This is the most of like a league at a time I've ever known, like across a league. I've known my own team better in years past than I know my own team right now, but I know more about the teams and like the storylines. There are a couple teams. There's still a couple names in baseball that if you say, I go, huh? Because we haven't touched their team. And I know that's probably pretty bad. But look, I'm doing what I got to do to get my job done. And my job is to talk about the teams that we're talking about. But I'm so excited for the postseason. But then after that, I'm going to have plenty of attention to just spend elsewhere. And I'm kind of excited to just come blindly to football and be like, oh, that guy's here now?
It's the best part of every season. Katie, as someone who's like spends most of our energy, because while we're a show that technically covers everything, we're like every other national show. We just bleed.
It's football.
We wait for football and basketball season. Even then, my favorite part of every NFL season that I've in theory covered all offseason is figuring out which player whose name I still vaguely know is now playing for like the Green Bay Packers for some random reason. So that's the best part of every sport. But you mentioned being excited about the postseason. What are you most excited about heading down the stretch here for Major League Baseball?
I'm excited because I when we did the Cleveland Guardians game, it was not super early in the season, but it was on the earlier half, I would guess, if I had to guess. And I was like, I don't see why this isn't a playoff team. They weren't favorited to win their division, but they are doing really well. And I'd love to see a Terry Francona managed team in the playoffs. They're also the youngest team in the league, and I believe they're younger than a lot of like AAA teams.
Damn.
Because it's a very young roster. And I love that, and I like the way they play. Like, it's a lot of contact, it's a lot of base running. It's fun to watch. It's not just home runs, which I know a lot of people like, but like you see enough of them and you're just like, okay, so now the base is clear. And it's less strategic to me than when it's like, oh, if they can move this runner up, or they can, you know what I mean? And you got to plan it all out. I like there being base runners, something to watch between the batter and the pitcher. That way it's just more interesting to me. So I'm excited about that. The Red Sox, probably not gonna make it, which stinks, because if you look at all the teams that are above the luxury tax threshold, it's like the Dodgers and the Astros. It's teams that are like contending, and then us. And it's like, cool. So we're just up here spending money and not doing anything. This is so cool, and I love this. But it's The Phillies are an interesting story right now, and that might just be because we're covering them on Friday this week. But they have had a season where they kind of got counted out, and Bryce Harper went down, then they fired their manager, and then they have like an interim manager, and then they started killing it under him, and they're doing well. Now Bryce Harper's coming back, so everybody's like, oh my God, they're going to push, even though they're already, I think, in the second wild card spot for the National League. Could be the third. I think it's the second. And then this last week, they just played a series against the Diamondbacks, and they lost. I mean, there's a game happening right now, but the first two games, it was like 14. I have it written down. 13-7 and 12-3. It was like 21 unanswered runs between the two games against the Phillies. And it was like, what's happening to the Phillies? Why is this? Bryce Harper comes back and this happens? So that's fascinating to me. The Diamondbacks look good all of a sudden, and it could be because they brought up a couple rookies or like a couple prospects that they had been, I think one of them's like the number 3 prospect, Corbin Carroll. Because rosters go up in tomorrow, I think, September, right? They go up to 26. So you're going to see a lot of young kids come up, which is exciting, mostly for teams that aren't going to do much. But I feel like that's what I'm most excited about. I'll tell you, I'm not excited about the Dodgers. It just is like, I'm just like, okay, yeah, it's the Dodgers. You know what I mean? They're like, remember when Golden State went through that and everybody was like, yeah, okay, Golden State, we get
Dodgers fatigue at this point?
The Dodgers. Yeah, and like Astros fatigue, but I'm willing to admit that's probably personal. It's a very personal,
I will say though, the Astros portion of it,
Houston.
The Astros portion of it is amazing, considering just if you can put like the last 5 years under a microscope for the Astros, and you had this team go through a massive, sign stealing scandal, and then the 2020 season was supposed to be the hate tour where they go on the road and get their asses kicked by every opposing crowd. Doesn't really happen, so a little of it trickles over into 2021, and then as all that goes on, they just don't stop being fucking good. Like, it's one of the most impressive things I can recall in sports is this team had their success boiled down to, in a lot of people's mind, a bunch of, garbage can drumming and bullshit that went on in the postseason, and they just kept going and kept winning in a way that's sort of alarming and a pretty remarkable big dub for them, all things considered, because I feel like nothing baseball at large, as like a fan base outside of that place, wanted more was for that one team to fail, and they just refused to.
Yeah. And I will say, as a little addendum, that Dusty Baker and Dave Roberts are like 2 of my favorite managers of the managers that we've met. So it's nothing against the managers or even the players. It's just that, like, you see other teams having to make these tough calls on who they're gonna and how they're gonna spend this and that, and then you just see the Dodgers are like, yeah, we just pay all the best guys,
which is a good strategy.
Well, yeah, the Yankees just do it a lot. But would you say that the Astros still out there cheating? That's why they still winning? Okay.
No, I would not say that. I would never say that. Even as much as I dislike, I would never say that. No. Do I think they did? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But are they still?
We didn't know how they were
I would
cheating,
respect them so much if they were still cheating.
Yeah, no, they're not. That would be incredible. To just be like, you know what? I think we can still do it. And here's how.
The Patriots? Oh, I'm sorry.
But no, I think they're just good.
Oh.
Sorry?
There was just...
What did you say?
I was
Sorry, I didn't hear you. You cut out there. What did you say?
I had said, you see in New England, there's a team that had a bunch of gates. There was a bunch of like random different types of gates. And I would have to say, for me, once the Flate had a gate, I was like, okay, this is too much for me. Like they doing too much.
But we don't have to speaking of gates, we don't have to relitigate on Bill Gates' internet which of those were BS, right? Like, because a lot of it.
Mike,
let's just stick to baseball.
I'm sorry,
if we could, for the rest of
Brandon,
the.
You see what you've done here. You struck a nerve. Like Katie just got through doing Red Sox and Yankees games, survived that, and now you want to bring up the Patriots here.
Yeah, you trying to come at me?
Not at all.
You see what she did to Aaron Boone? She'll fuck you up.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro. I'll drop you. Right now, if we're looking at the playoff standings, the American League. Oh, do you guys understand how the postseason works now? Because it's new this year. And if you like,
I think Brandon and I both have a very detailed understanding, but some people listening to this podcast might not know what's going on.
Right.
So, Katie, why don't you help?
Right.
So we need to serve the listener here and the people watching us on YouTube. So why don't you help them all with how this is going to change?
Listen up, guys.
Okay, so what you're going to get, you're getting 6 teams from each of the leagues, the American League and the National League. The first 3, the number 1 seed is going to be the division winner with the best record. Then 2 and 3 will be the division winners with the second and third best record. So the top 3 are going to be your division winners. The bottom 3 are going to be wild cards. Same thing. It's the 4, 5, 6 seed will be best wild card record, second best, and third best. The top team, the number 1 seed, gets a bye. The 2 seed hosts the 6 seed in a 3-game wildcard series, all at the home field of the 2 seed. All 3 games. And then the, what am I missing? The 5th.
In the 3rd.
The 4th and the top 2 teams must get a bye. Because now I'm like, there'd be too many teams, right?
Yep.
So the top 2 teams get a bye. Sick. I'm going to help you guys understand it wrong. Top 2 teams get a bye. The 3 plays 6 at 3, and 4 plays 5 at 4 in a 3-game series, all at that one stadium. And then they go on to the next round. And they don't reseed. They don't reseed after that. So then you're going to get... So there's like a way that actually in the National League, being the 6th seed is an easier path than being the 5 seed, because the leader of the wild card right now is the Braves, and they're great, you know? So it's just a tough road. But here's what it would look like right now if the season ended. It'd be in order: Astros, Yankees, Guardians, Rays, Mariners, Blue Jays. In the American League. And then in the National League, Dodgers, Mets, Cardinals. Cardinals are sneaky good. Braves, Phillies, Padres.
Damn.
But the Padres aren't doing so hot right now. And the Phillies are also having a hard time. So the next few teams that are kind of in the hunt for that last spot in the National League are the Brewers, and I guess you could say Diamondbacks, but they've got like a less than 1% chance of making it. So it's mostly the Brewers that could hop in there. And in the American League, the people that are still in the hunt, the teams, are the Twins, the Orioles, the White Sox barely, and the Red Sox barely.
Yeah, you might just need to let that one go for your own sanity. Like, I don't.
Yeah, I have. I've come to peace, and
I saw Jared Carrabis on a therapy couch on DraftKings internal thing earlier.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it. I don't know
Katie.
how he's dealing with it, because there have been some games this year. Again, me just being like, you know what? I'm back in. I'm back in on this team. There have been some games this season that I'm like, that's a remarkably new way to lose. You just keep finding different, new, inventive. I'll give him that, inventive ways to just lose.
Speaking of the Blue Jays,
and it's tough.
Oh. Well, I was going to say, Katie, we were at MLB All-Star Weekend that we dearly missed you at. We knew we talked about this on the podcast.
Yeah,
we were watching the Red Sox game where Chris Sale had come back from injury only to break his hand off a pitch, and then had Jared on the podcast with us that day. And I have never seen a more broken person in front of a microphone. It was legitimately hard to look at him and ask questions about that team on that day.
It was so defeating and deflating, and it was against the Yankees.
Yeah, that's not cute.
It just was like, cool, this is so cool. But now we got like a pitcher whose first name is the name of a pitch. We got Cutter Crawford. I mean, it's with a K, but guy seems destined to be.
That seems even more
a great pitcher.
appropriate given the way that we
idolize
Strikes.
Right.
So
Strikes.
that's actually incredible. Holy shit.
Yeah. Maybe he'll turn out to be something
God
great.
willing for all you, Katie. God
Sometime
willing
soon.
for all you.
Katie, can I ask you
I think Xander Bogaerts is going to leave. I don't think he's going to stay. That's terrifying to me, but I think he's
that sounds
go.
like you were just. That sounds like honestly you were just saying it out loud to try and hear it for yourself, like before you.
Yeah, it's like I've said it in my head a couple times, and I just wanted to see what it sounded like, and hated it. But yeah, I think he's probably gonna go. We'll see, though. What were you gonna say, Brandon?
And it seems inconsequential at this point in time, but I just wanted to ask your opinion on just this headline about Tatis Jr. Like, do you think it's fair that Adidas dropped him after he got ringworm? Like, he clearly needs, like, you know, I don't know. It seems silly for sponsors to drop players for things like this in baseball.
Yeah, I mean they've dropped him for less. He can't play, and if you would argue, I've seen people argue incorrectly, but I have seen people argue that like when female athletes get pregnant, they used to get dropped because they weren't competing, and people being like, well, they're not competing, so that's fair. But it's like, no, that's not how it works. So it's, if we were using that logic though, then it would make sense. I thought I had seen that the ringworm thing was it was like a bad lie because it's similarly spelled type of drug that is not the drug he was caught using. Is what I had seen.
Were you surprised
by
the vitriol that went his way, though? Because I felt like there was a lot more, like, genuine anger. Like, it even felt like some of that was emanating from the Padres when this came out about Tatis Jr. and that suspension.
Well, so the Padres, they're beaten up. Like, as a franchise, that week that we did a Padres game and I spent it immersed in the online fan world of the Padres, they were like, if we're not gonna friggin' do it soon, I'm gonna lose my mind. Like, they are desperate. And last year they had that big collapse that was clearly devastating for them. And they brought in a new manager who's supposed to be like the adult in the room, supposed to like help organize everything, get them to where their full potential is, and Tatis is out. Then Tatis is like about to be coming back, and then he's out again. Like, it just I was surprised by the vitriol, but then once I thought about it, I was like, not saying I would do that, not saying that's but I can see the sources of it potentially, the things that might have built up to that, led to that, fueled the fire, if you will. That stinks. That absolutely stinks. And also, to me, is wild that, like, you're in I know that we have these ideas of, like, when an athlete is recovering from an injury, like, what their life is like. It's probably not like that, but you think that, like, your body is being more monitored now than ever because they're checking on your body to make sure your body's good. So it seems like a very strange time for him to have tried to sneak something into his body, to me.
Well,
and it also seems like the team, maybe that's why the team went hard at him, to be like, we have to be clear that we didn't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess, you know what? I hadn't thought about that part either, that, like, you would like to make sure that everyone knows this was not sort of some condoned thing within the walls of this program.
Yeah, we didn't give it to him. It wasn't us.
We definitely didn't like this because my first reaction when I saw this was just thinking back personally, because I said at the time it wasn't betraying a trust, but, like, my dad's talked about for years, he did steroids when he was coming back from a shoulder injury in the NFL. Yeah, you didn't know that about that guy you spend all this time getting hot and bothered about and revering. Yeah, he's a cheater. He's a criminal.
Juiced up.
Damn. That's so hot.
Willing to do.
What a rule breaker.
Oh, you would like that, wouldn't you?
I can spin anything. Tell me anything about your dad that stinks.
God,
I'll
spin it. I just inadvertently turned him into football's bad boy for Katie. God damn it.
Woo!
Leather jacket, Mike Golick.
The kind of dad that wouldn't get mad at you for smoking weed. Love that. He loves that.
He'd ask you why you didn't share.
Yeah. Oh, that's a different. I feel like he's not that dad. Is he that dad? Because, man, that's a different dad I could also get down with. So you were saying he did steroids to come back from an injury.
So that timeline of it did somewhat make sense. Obviously, you're right in that now versus like 1990 or whenever that was for dad. It's a
I don't. Did he get caught?
No, he never got caught. He admitted it like. Yeah, I know.
Smooth
I
criminal.
managed to get away from
it.
Yeah. Something about my dad's body type never really screamed steroid use
I get it.
when he was a player. So if you can go back and look at some of the Mike Golick Sr. trading cards, they don't exactly look like a guy. Like, he wasn't Aaron Donald out here with a six-pack playing D-tackle. It was a little bit different back then, but but like,
That's true.
did it to try and come back earlier from injury because he wanted to keep a job. And I'm sure for Tatis Jr., he wanted to get back to do his job.
He wanted to come back quicker, I bet. Yeah, it's clear that like the intention behind it is to get out on the field, which is what everybody wants from you. The unfortunate thing is that if you get caught doing it, you're not getting out on the field for quite some time. So it's then the thing you were rushing to do, now you're not even going to do at all. So it goes from being like a good intention to like the opposite of the outcome that you were looking for. So I think that's why people get mad, because they were really looking forward to him coming back. That team, at least on paper, and we've seen before teams that are on paper are not always the same in practice, but like on paper that team was unstoppable. That was like the push that you always want your team to invest in and make is the push that they were making. And then he's not coming back.
Yeah, no, I can get it. It like you said, once you consider the whole picture there, it starts to make a lot more sense. It really does.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, he's a human, and I feel like there was a lot of I just think in general, guys, the amount of anger that we're showing online is a little too much. And if we could just take that down a smidge, because I promise your anger's not at the whatever you're typing about. Maybe some of it, but it is just a place where you are channeling a lot of stuff that, like, honestly, none of our business. So, like, if you could just handle that offline, your offline problems, then I think your online problems are going to become, few and far between. Because you're going to start,
so this goes
being
all
normal.
The way back to our conversation about confession that at this point, I don't even know if we'll actually be in the podcast or not, but
that was like 3 podcasts ago,
confession, and sports needs a third party to absorb all of that anger and hatred. Like, we've gotten used to treating the internet like it's confession, where you've got this screen between you, but then you're saying it directly to the subject of what you're angry about. Like, you need a third party in here. If confession's supposed to be like, we're not saying it directly at God and freaking him out, we're giving it to one of his guys to go ahead and, soften the blow on. We need like...
God doesn't meet you in the booth. You talk to one of his associates.
He's got a lot of other stuff going on, world-ending events and stuff like that.
Right.
But we need sports to have an intermediary for some sort of confession so that people stop being so fucking angry online all the time.
Yeah. Some might call it therapy.
Men will literally invent sports confession instead of going to therapy.
I like that, sports confession.
Oh, Jesus Christ. There's a terrible bit somewhere in there that'll one day be accomplished.
Well, actually, speaking of this, Katie, I wanted to talk about this before we let you go. Listen, I don't know how Mike. I sense Mike's energy, and it feels like let's. I don't know, Mike. I don't know if you're getting set to let Katie go. I want to say this real quick. Damn it! Let me talk to Katie.
Say it.
You're just sitting here reading our faces, telling us how we're feeling instead of asking your question.
Brandon Boo, are you okay?
I'm not.
Are you okay?
Well,
what's up?
What
do you need from me?
I wanted to talk to you, Katie. Mike, excuse me.
All right, I'll leave. Sorry.
Okay, what do you need? Yeah, Mike, if you could just leave us.
I wanted to thank you for your transparency about this process with you going through, because I don't know how much you realize a lot of people see what you're going through, hear what you're going through, are rooting for you, and then obviously the people that aren't rooting for you, you're getting a chance to put them on blast. But I'll say for myself, it's really encouraging to see how you've handled it and how just the reps and getting better and just getting confident and the different things you're being able to tell yourself. Because I try to tell myself that, because I just recently got forced into a gig with a very popular, very good at this thing person that you know very well. And me, my friends like to talk to me about sports, but I just do all the things off the screen very well. The stuff I do on the screen, I'm not as comfortable with. So I find myself listening to people, trying to be a better version of what they want me to be and not really tapping into what I want to be. So it's a continual process for me as well. And you're our episode 85 right now. So it really is just a continuous process. So I want to thank you for being transparent about it, because it's helped me a lot. And I know a lot of people in this industry are young, coming up, listening to you and looking to you as a North Star. So I appreciate it. I wanted to let you know you're helping a lot of people.
Brandon, you sweetie pie. That was so nice.
Dead ass.
Man,
Dead ass,
thanks.
Mike.
I feel like me being here in this gig is like so much luck that it's like, why wouldn't I share every piece of it with anybody that, like, I didn't go into this thinking I'm going to be a broadcaster for 25 years. I went into it thinking I would do it for a season. I have no idea what next season is, if it's even an offer or anything for me to do it again. So I went into this knowing it was going to be one, and to just try to, like, I don't know, squeeze as much out of it as I can. So I'm glad to hear that at least some of the juice was worth the squeeze. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
What I missed,
Mike, you can come back. Brandon is the cutest and the best, and you should give him a raise.
All right, there we go. You know what?
Yes.
You heard it. Stacy, everyone else in
Guardian
DraftKings here.
Leviosa.
Brandon needs more money. Let's make that shit happen.
Yeah, that's right. Just a little more, so he can have.
Well, and so he can,
kids.
so
Exactly.
Brandon can buy an upgrade for the tractor that he was sitting on inside the garage at the start of this, that he for some reason deviated from out of shame. Are you still on the tractor? Did you
Katie
just bring the stuff
shamed me.
over here?
No,
I didn't mean
Katie
to shame
shamed me
you.
out. She's like, Brandon, why are you so far?
I just didn't
Why are you so
understand.
far? I was like, it's
He
a
was so
bit.
far
It's a
away.
bit, Katie.
Well,
It's a bit.
And
It's
now
a
that
good
we
bit.
are
I
on
shouldn't have said
YouTube, we can't
anything.
have
I just-
everyone actually see you sitting on a tractor inside a garage.
Yeah. Hey guys, how good is this bit?
Thanks, my tractor sexy. Okay, I'm sorry. It's a
Nice.
lawnmower.
It's more of like an idea of she
Yeah.
rather than literal Katie Nolan, because I don't really know how Katie Nolan
Yeah.
feels
It's
about
a
the tractor.
metaphorical.
Oh, yeah,
It's the
yeah.
proverbial she.
The royal.
Yeah.
The all she.
Of course. Hey, before you let me go, can we make sure we address that Albert Pujols in his age 42 season is potentially about to hit his 700th
Well,
career
I was
home
kind of
run?
curious. I had that one and the Aaron Judge chase written down because I felt like in baseball, and like you said, I understand the thought process about home runs and how it leads to the way we've gone all in, a less inning to inning inciting brand of baseball where you have less in play. But I feel like home runs in general were the thing that as you went along in a season, that was most likely to be the cut-in from SportsCenter, is someone's in the middle of a home run race, we are going live to their at-bat. And I feel like maybe it'll happen as we get closer to 61. And I know they're keeping track of Judge's stuff right now. There's like a running thing on ESPN.com. But do you feel like both of these situations aren't getting their just due right now? Because for how big a name these guys both are in Judge and in Pujols and what they're on the cusp of, I haven't often felt like it's risen to the place I thought it should be. Yeah.
Can I answer this honestly? Ooh. I don't watch a lot of ESPN. So I don't know what's really getting national play. It's MLB Network in this house, and it's very pleasant. It's a very pleasant experience so far. I wouldn't be surprised by that, I guess I would say. I'll take your word for it because who is she? I've never heard of her. But I wouldn't be surprised. We got Judge at 51, so he's 10 away from the Maris record, and Pujols is at 694 career home runs. What's his face? A-Rod had 696. He's fourth all time at 696. So I feel like that's reachable.
Definitely.
For him, and I think he's going to do it. It's crazy because as of Monday, he hit 8 home runs in his past 17 games. So it's like he's kind of turned it up. It's like I don't know. I like when I know it's most times that we say like, he's chasing this. And they're like, yeah, I'm not thinking about that. But I like when you're like, it does seem like he's chasing it. Like he's getting up there and like,
at this point, it'd be
okay.
impossible not to for
these.
him, right? Like you're clearly exhausting all of your physicals. Like I remember talking to Jared and Dallas at the All-Star game, and they're like, Pujols is going to be at the home run derby exhausted because the guy is 40-something years old and clearly feeling all of that.
And he made it to the second round, which was like, he wasn't expecting that. And I bet he was hoping to take a break and drink a water.
We think Schwarber kind of
Crazy.
threw that, right?
Yeah, I don't know because I don't know if that's like a huge thing to say about an athlete and if that would like really hurt them to think that they would throw a competition. Like it feels like a big accusation. Sometimes you just don't have it. Some nights it's just not your night to hit bombs. Sometimes you're just not getting in the rhythm. And sometimes you're up against Pujols who didn't do poorly in it. But when he made it to the second round, I was like, oh no, he's probably like, I did not account for this. But it ignited him, I feel like. It's how he got into this, I'm sure people knew heading into the season that he might get there, but I didn't. It wasn't talked about then. He's He's tied for first with Barry Bonds with 21 seasons of 15-plus home runs.
Jesus Christ.
So crazy.
He's hit 15, I think, this season, if not more than 15. He's the fourth ever to hit 15 home runs age 42 or older. It's amazing. 42 years
It is
old.
wild that as we've done the fascination with Tom Brady and Serena and what they've done north of 40, that Albert Pujols should absolutely be mentioned in that same breath. Like, everything you've said is wild.
Man, people think you don't have to be an athlete to play baseball, and it's very frustrating.
so?
Like, there's that narrative about pitchers that pitchers aren't athletes, that they just pitch, and if the ball comes to them, they freak out. I've seen some incredible plays from pitchers this year. You have to at least be aware. Even if you're not a great athlete, they're still athletes, and it's an absolutely ridiculous thing to say, in my opinion. But I just feel like I remember with older baseball players, the way people being like, yeah, you don't have to, it's an older man's sport. And it's like, I guess it's because it's less hot, like, it's not high contact. You're not like, throwing your body into another person. But like, it's still, my body is different, and I'm 35 and I don't do sports. So like, imagine the little differences that you'd feel in your body. It's like a Princess and the Pea, like a tiny little thing to an athlete. It's like, I feel that. I recognize that that's different. Whereas I'm like, I don't know, haven't my knees always hurt? But like, 42? 42?
Well, man, I think maybe...
And I will also say, once what we're all not thinking about as us idiots, we're all sitting here smiling, talking about Serena's great career and Tom Brady, how's he still doing it, and Albert Pujols. As soon as they're gone, we're going to realize how old we are. Because those names are going to be gone, and all the names we're talking about are going to be like 26 and 27 and 28, younger than us. So like, I'm holding on to the Miguel Cabreras, and I want them to stick around forever, because when they're done, then we're the old people in the room.
Absolutely.
And I can't.
Katie, I
I'm not ready
downloaded
for that
TikTok.
yet.
I already feel ancient. Like,
Are you making them? Do you make
started
TikToks?
making them because for some reason I feel like courting that disaster in my life.
Brandon, are they bad? Tell it to me straight. Are they bad?
Mike, they wouldn't be out there if they're bad. He probably's got a whole group thread that's like saying, like, reshoot this way. They're pretty mint when we get to them. But
you're submitting them to Mina for notes?
No,
because then
hand to God, trust me. I wish I
Yeah.
had Mina on the payroll for that. They'd be a lot better. But no, sadly, I am a single mom making TikToks over here by myself. So.
I love it. I'm going to follow you. I have a fake account that I use to just like bookmark the posts so that when Dan gets home, I can go, like my own little late night show. I'm like, here's what you missed today on TikTok. And then I take him through all my favorite
That's
ones.
funny because social media killed late
But
night.
I don't make them. Yeah. Isn't it funny?
Isn't it?
Well,
I'm sorry.
that feels like a podcast.
That's
What else?
a
Anything?
beautiful note to end on, Brandon.
Anything else?
No.
I do want to say, because we're covering the Giants this week, that in their series that they just played the Padres, it was insane, and I have so much sympathy for Giants fans. They were down in the three-game series. They were down 4 or more runs early. They battled back within 1 run and then lost.
Oh,
That's
100%.
got to be the worst way to lose a game.
Damn.
I don't know where I'd rank it as opposed to like blowing a lead. That's probably worse. But the fact that you were out of it, people were like, this game's over. You started to fight back. The energy comes back into the crowd. They're like, oh my God, we might do this. And then it just ends. And you're like, no, we didn't. We didn't do this. And they didn't do this 3 games in a row. 3 one-run losses to the Padres. Crazy. That's got to be so frustrating. So I'm sorry to Giants fans. I hope that you feel better. And
Giants fans, we hope you feel better. Look at it this way. You could be Nebraska football fans who have done that thing 7 straight times. So there's always someone who's got it a little bit worse than you. But you guys also get to hear Katie Nolan on your game this coming Friday. So that should make you feel a lot better.
And Hunter Pence. You guys love that dude. You love Hunter Pence. So it's going to be a good one, I think.
We're going to take your word for it there. And I believe you. And I believe them.
Yeah,
it's going to be great.
We'll
Katie, always good checking in with you, bud. We appreciate you coming and hanging out with us and just being wonderful. We're happy to see you happy. It's been fun this year.
I love you guys, both of you. Brandon, you're great at this. Don't question yourself for a second. You're great at this, and that's why you're here. So don't worry about it, okay?
Katie. You're great at everything.
Love you. Yeah, sure.
Love you too, bud.
I don't know.
We'll see. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
All right, again, everyone make sure you watch Katie Nolan this Friday night, the late game on Apple TV+. Always a blast rocking with Katie. Brandon, now we've come to the point of the podcast where I get to very gladly hand the baton back to you. I got to take over yesterday. I got to test out my vocal cords. I know we have people clamoring for a duet now.
Yes,
after what happened yesterday, and I promise at some point, maybe at the next live show, we'll deliver on that. We'll give the people what they want. But in the meantime, Brandon, I get to now ask you this question again. Do you know what time it is?
Girls, you know you better watch out. Some guys are only about this, that, and the third. This, that, and the third.
I'm always so nervous to jump in too soon because I'm so used to getting my toes stepped on. He's back, folks. The king has returned. Brandon, that was beautiful. And as always, download, subscribe, rate, and review. Please give us a 5-star rating and a review, or tweet us at GoJo Show and let Brandon know how much you missed him on his day off here. Brandon, let's get to this. The NFL gave us an interesting comparative trade. The Philadelphia Eagles traded wide receiver Jalen Reagor to the Minnesota Vikings. The team announced on Wednesday. Now, he had been on the Eagles' initial 53-man roster. We're getting to the point now where we have seen a couple of these. David Blau, the quarterback for the Detroit Lions, who had been one of the stars of Hard Knocks. His wife was the competitive sprinter that was in the last Olympics, produced that great viral video of the team watching her. He got released the day after those rosters were set. It's a particularly cruel way to go out. I'd seen that happen to a couple of guys where you wake up that next day and you don't get the call. If you're getting cut, you get a phone call. You get told to go to an office. If you're making the team, you don't hear from anybody. Not hearing from anyone's a good thing, and so you survive that initial day of anxiety and then get cut is a really tough way for a lot of guys to get dealt that bad news. Now, Jalen Reagor was on that roster and got traded. The Eagles receive a 2023 7th-round NFL draft pick and a 24 conditional 4th that could be downgraded to a 5th-round pick if certain things aren't met statistically. So he heads over to the Minnesota Vikings, and that's where that gets interesting, Brandon, because the 21st overall pick in the 2020 NFL draft was Jalen Reagor. He had 65 catches for 695 yards and 3 touchdowns in his first 2 seasons. He was selected 1 pick before Justin Jefferson, who is now his teammate with the Minnesota Vikings. And Brandon, do you want to venture a guess as to what Justin Jefferson's stats over the last 2 years have looked like?
Significantly better than that.
In 2 seasons, Justin Jefferson has accounted for 196 catches for 3,016 yards and 17 touchdowns. We do this a lot of time with quarterbacks, and I think especially now because there's such a rush of wide receiver talent heading to the NFL early, and you can get so many good guys in the draft, we do kind of gloss over. I'm sure no one in Philadelphia has glossed over this, because really for them, between this and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, you've had a couple of big-time receiver misses in early rounds. Devonta Smith has proven you right. Going and trading for A.J. Brown has certainly been helpful, but this was a tough pill to swallow when you've seen what Justin Jefferson has been able to accomplish in Minneapolis.
Yeah, but that's why I think it was obviously unfair for Jalen Reagor, but I do think there's a fresh start with the guy who was able to do it more consistently. I don't know, there's something to playing with your competition, and you know that Adam Thielen took a leap, in my opinion, when Justin Jefferson got there as well. And I think that it's that wide receiver room and the competition there that is going to be helpful, hopefully, for Jalen Reagor.
Well, it's a vantage point change, too, as much as a change of scenery, right? Because you go from being a guy who had first-round expectations on him that he wasn't living up to, and we talked about the pressure and the mindset of individual athletes. the pressure of being an undrafted player is different than the pressure of being a first rounder, but both face it. And for Jalen Reagor, he knew he wasn't living up to what he wanted to do as a player during his early run there in Philadelphia. And you can talk about the quarterback things that have gone on there and plenty of reasons that could have affected it. But now he gets to go, and you're right, in Minneapolis, you have Adam Thielen, you have Justin Jefferson, and then you've even got another buffer in between him. He's expected to go there and essentially be the fourth receiver on that team. He's there to supplement that group. So he gets to completely reframe his role in football, which can sometimes, I think, be helpful for non-quarterbacks at different positions to have a chance to go out there and focus on comparatively fewer things and to try and do those better and to be a true role player has certainly got to be a slice of humble pie in its own way. We all got egos, but also puts you in a headspace where maybe it simplifies some of the things that you've been overthinking. So hopefully it works out well for him. Certainly Minnesota is a team with a lot of expectation on it this year, so we'll see if Kirk Cousins can be the difference for Jalen Reagor. Who'd have thunk it? Brandon, let's get to something a little more close to our hearts and get to that. That was a very interesting story I saw today about a Washington football offensive lineman, and the tweet is not loading as fast as I wanted to, so I've got to filibuster here for a quick second. But yeah, these damn tweets. All right, here we go. Now we got it up here. So, tweet earlier today as we get ready for college football's week 1. Mike Vorel, who covers the Washington Huskies for the Seattle Times, actually a guy we know well, used to work at the South Bend Tribune. But Mike Vorel, covering the Washington Huskies, posted a story about an offensive lineman named Nate Kalepo, who is making his first start for the Washington Huskies this weekend. And there's some great stuff in that story. His mother died in December, and he wears a chain with a picture of her and he when he was a baby. He plays every game in her honor. You know, he talked about how much he missed his mom and what it would mean to have her back and all these very wonderful things. And it also documented for him, like a lot of offensive linemen, they said he grew up idolizing Danny Shelton. He wears number 71 at Washington in his honor. And part of the reason he's in this position now is because he dropped 30 pounds this offseason while adding 100 pounds to his squat. He did it in part by dropping McDonald's, according to Mike Vorel. The quote of his previous order is as follows: 2 double quarter pounders, 2 McChickens, a large fry, an Oreo McFlurry, and a large Coke. Every time, every time. Brandon, you still got that dog in you?
I if that's what the dog food is, I could, Mike. Probably one of those McChickens I couldn't finish, but I love the symmetry in his order. And he was doing way too much though.
Man, I will say it's a great order. The McDouble is the best burger at McDonald's.
No.
There's no question.
He didn't say McDouble. Did you say quarter pounder?
Oh, double quarter pounder. Excuse me.
Double quarter pounder.
Yeah,
which
he
is
went double quarter pounder. So
that's the high calorie one.
That's the one thing I would change. I think it is, and I would say I think the McDouble's a better burger, but the double quarter pounder, lots of ass to it. The McChickens work. I honestly, Brandon, even where I'm at now, I think this is still doable. Like I said, I'm going to be calling a Washington football game on radio in week 3. And part of me is wondering if I need to see if I can eat this within the body of a broadcast.
Oh, Mike, I think you could handle that at halftime. Maybe the Oreo shake is going to make it to the third quarter. The Oreo shake will make it to the third quarter. But outside of that, like I don't even drink Coke like that, and that order sounds very typical lineman to me.
Yes, like I feel like everyone who's ever been around or north of 300 pounds has a couple of pelts like that on their wall. And while I applaud this one, like there was someone that said at R Tomashoff 34 says, I would like to see you. He was talking to Mike Vorel. Totally try the totally real Kalepo challenge where you order this and see how long it takes to finish. I do love the notion that someone might go out to try this. This does seem like Stephen Godfrey territory, but I don't know, man. I have a couple of weeks to consider this and maybe go to McDonald's and sort of gauge what my capacity might be right now, because I don't want to throw up on my new coworkers. That would be kind of messed up. But congratulations to him. An incredible feat. obviously trimming down, getting strong, getting ready to go. Washington, another interesting team to watch in the Pac-12 this year, and I'll get to check out their game against Michigan State. So I will report back on how our newfound hero is out here balling for the Huskies. But at GoJo Show on Twitter, how long do you think it would take you to do this? I'd be very curious to see some answers from people out here. But Brandon, let's get to the third, because if we're going to talk about giving the people what they want, then apparently there is a very high office that someone believes may be calling their name. Whew. Last week on First Take, and I do not remember the context of this conversation at all, Brandon. I just remember seeing all the headlines in the aftermath and every text plate on Instagram and Twitter. And it was a quote from Stephen A. Smith that said, quote, "If the American people wanted me to run for the president of the United States of America, I would strongly consider it, and damn it, I mean it." Which, that's how you know this wasn't some sort of ballsack sports thing, because for him to tag it with a "damn it, I mean it," and "damn it, I ain't playing," that's how you know it's real uncut Stephen A. Smith. Right. So, Brandon, how does President Stephen A. Smith sound to you?
I mean, why? Like I don't care, other than the fact that he thinks that this is like, no one asked him. I'm sure the conversation was, he got asked, like, would you do it? And he was like, "Oh, man, if enough people wanted me to do it, I'll go out there and be president." That doesn't sound like a Stephen A. Smith exactly. But I like the concept of America forcing someone to be president that wasn't interested in it in the first place. That's what I like about the story. The concept of just forcing someone, feet dragging, kicking, screaming into the White House, and like, now sit there and president us.
But I love the idea of this, though, that Stephen A. would not be dragged against his will. All he needs is a whiff of the American people wanting him to be president, and he would happily take it, because remember, this is not a man that lacks for confidence. He was one that famously said he has often claimed he would have won the trial against O.J. Simpson had he been. I often would have said that. I'd have won that trial. Like, you remember that. By the way, your Stephen A. Smith impression is truly terrible, and I say that as someone who has a pretty good impression.
You have a good Stephen A. Smith?
I mean, Brandon Newman, I just want to be very clear about what you're saying right now. You're telling me, and Brandon, I want you to look in the camera, because I promise you don't want to make an enemy out of me. Because, ladies and gentlemen, it's really just that simple. If the American people want to see Stephen A. Smith in the White House, then damn it, I'm going to find myself up in the White House, and I'm going to make this work for the American people. Brandon Rail Newman.
I see what you did now. I see what you did. You're clear with your words, but you're not using enough lip in between the important words. You got to give them a little bit more. You got to make sure they listen to what you're saying. You got to repeat it a little bit more, and you got to give a little bit more lip and more tongue and more energy at the top.
Now, see, I think you're infusing too much Shannon Sharp into Stephen A. Smith. I think the lip and the tongue you're talking about are Shannon.
Shannon, teeth and tongue. Teeth and tongue for Shannon. I'm not even trying to jump into the Shannon. Skip, now skip, hold, skip. Now wait a minute, now skip. I'm trying to tell you something. So it's a little different.
Now you sound like the Kanye West skits from Graduation, or not from Graduation, from yes.
Mr. West, no, sleeping in my class.
Not gonna walk across that stage. Can't drag you across that motherfucking stage. Which sports media personality would make the best president at the end of all of this?
I mean, I don't want to put her there, but Mina.
I mean, Mina's the easy answer, because I think she's got the highest Q rating.
You said best.
She comes with a business background. Like, listen, I'm not disagreeing with you there. So maybe in the non-Mina Kimes category, because I feel like she's a very easy answer for us. I'm trying to think of who would be the best vice president, too. Because you've got to have enough draw to you, and you're like the godparent of the office, where I have to know if things go wrong. I can count on you to step in.
You know, right? We're taking so long because we think and know both at the same time that there is a right answer, and we don't want to just say anything.
Well, I will say this. Michael Smith's got some good presidential vibes, man.
Oh, I like Michael Smith as that. Yes.
Very, very measured, smart, gave us a lot of good advice the last time we were here.
I hear you on Michael Smith, but I think he needs to be, the president needs to be healthily hated for whatever reason, and because of that, I think RG3 would actually play a good role for that.
RG3 would be an interesting president. He's got a lot of good sayings already. Like he's very quotable in the way that he approaches that. I guess if nothing else, I do feel like because we saw this happen with Trump in the debates where he was he wandered into it with such like clearly bad intentions. He was not there to actually debate subjects. He was there to bully the other people up on stage, which is a big time sports media debate show tactic. That just ends up like when you put Mad Dog and Stephen A up on there, you see the gloves come off very quickly. I feel like sports media folks would be a lot better at the actual debate content that you saw at the debates than the people that are debating at the debates right now. So this would be the major upgrade where, if nothing else, I would love the idea of, even if we're not going to make him a candidate, just one time, put Stephen A in there with the presidential nominees at the debate.
I mean, I would like to see him moderate.
Convince Stephen A that he is a legitimate candidate, and then let him go out there, knowing full well it's not actually going to go that far, but let him go up there and just... He'll have it, because clearly the one thing with Stephen A is, while he's not an expert on every sport, he does a really good job of getting prepared to debate about the one thing in that sport when it comes up on the show. And so you could get him to a point where he's going to know enough about the things you're going to ask him to debate, and then it's just the bravado and the experience, the medium, and that I would sign up for when it comes to the debates 100%.
And especially when it comes to debates by what you look on television. Stephen A. Smith, surprisingly very, very tall man. So he would tower over the podium a little bit.
Yes.
When he's reaching over and pointing, you might see his finger in a frame of somebody else, like just kind of getting pointed at. Like I think that would swing some people. But also, I think Mike, we're a little guilty of living in the 4-letter network world, where like Ernie Johnson, or like some people think it's like, open your mind to some CBS people. Like I feel like there's some presidents over there. I think Ernie Johnson would do a really good job as president for us. You don't think so? Delivering the messages?
You know what? Honestly, Ernie is Ernie's the perfect vice president. Ernie Johnson is the perfect vice president.
Yeah.
I would absolutely... you think about it. He's perfect for that role. Universally liked. Everyone believes he's competent and can do the job. Like, he is one of the ultimate teammates. He has been at the helm of the most popular sports studio show in the history of the medium.
True.
He seems like the perfect vice presidential candidate.
Yes. And I think just with Ernie as the vice, imagine that Doris Ernie ticket. Doris Burke. As president?
Wow, President DB. That'd be... listen, you're not going to get any argument from me on that one. Doris Burke. You want to talk... we talked Serena Williams GOAT stuff. Doris Burke. Up in that lofty, heady territory. At GoJo Show on Twitter. Download, subscribe, rate, and review GoJo wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. And fill out your sports talk media presidential cabinet with who you'd like to see. President, vice president... any other role you want to see, Secretary of Defense, all of those different roles, who you want to assign them to in sports media, and we'll try and build out this universe. As always, we appreciate you guys that come to the end of this term with us. We can be elected for another term tomorrow. We hope you will do that with us again here. Thanks so much, and we will talk to you tomorrow.